Hello and welcome to our next module, Dance at Court. I want to begin by apologizing because I am in a different space. I'm in a different space recording this lecture and the lectures for this module. I'm using a different set of headsets, and I expect that there will be some issues with sound. I do apologize. This is the best that I could do at the moment. Also, remember that all modules include both audio lectures and reading. In order to successfully complete the submissions, you need to engage with both the readings and the lectures and include content from the reading and the lectures in your submissions. Additional research can be done. That research needs to be supported by citations in your assignments. In this module, in this unit, we are looking at dance at court. Questions that you want to be able to answer is, what is a royal court? Where do they exist? What are some examples of royal court dances? What purpose do these dances serve? How are these dances used as political tools? And what are some characteristics of court dance? It must be noted that courts exist all over the world and have for many years. It is not possible within a semester to cover all of the courts that have existed and to do so within a respectful manner. So I am going to offer a few that I think directly relate to the trajectory of this course. A court refers to both the physical building that the rulers are living in, or buildings, the space that they live in, but it also refers to the people that populate that space. You can hold a position at court. The power of dance is communicated, the power of dance to communicate the past glories of a community, and by doing so, bind the community closer together. This is the power of dance at court. The movement and the spectacle used in this case means the experience, the observation. It's used as a tool of political power because it reminds the society of their trials, their tribulations, and in doing so helps them to find and remember why they are together, right? We went through this experience together, and that's why we are bonded. Courts come into existence as instruments of political, military, spiritual, and cultural authority. Their primary purpose is to manifest power. The survival of a court depends on its ability to mirror the society and successfully reflect its needs and aspirations. So, a successful court, a court that is that it's safe, for lack of a better word, is a reflection of the society, the community that it serves. When we begin, what Gerald Jonas is speaking of in this case is when we begin to when the court fails to be a representation of the society that it serves, it is no longer doing its job. We see an example of this. We will see an example of this later in the course when we speak about the Romantic era. There's a shift in the dance form directly related to people in society feeling as though the court was no longer reflecting what was going on in society. You've seen this slide before. So in this example, I am just highlighting the difference between under performance. You see a clear line between audience and the performer. In a performance technique, in a performance, there are clearly defined roles. Someone is here to perform, someone is here to watch. This is not as clear, it's not a set role when you're looking at social dance forms. If you're at a party, you can choose to be a dancer, or you can choose to observe. But you have freedom to go back and forth between those roles. In a performance, the performers are the performers, and the audience, the observers, are just that. Common trends that we see at court. Dance at court requires training. So counter to social dance, vernacular dance, folk dance forms, this dance requires training. You're going through a specific, a very defined, specific experience that leads to you understanding codification. So these moves are performed this way to convey this. They have to be done this way. That is not to say that social dance forms lack technique, because all of these forms have technique. It is to say that the way that the form is learned is different. The amount of freedom that is allowed in performing the form, meaning freedom of interpretation of performing the form, is different in codified styles, court dance versus social dance. These dances depict the history and the dynasty and the mythology. So what happened in history, and with that, the mythology of this nation coming to be what it is, this dynasty, this court coming to be what it is now. This movement and the observation, the whole experience, are a tool of political power, because they are reminding the observers, this is why these people are in charge. This is why things are the way that they are. In these experiences, there's use of geometrical shapes. So we're looking at the element of space here, right? There are shapes that hold symbolism to that society and help to convey additional meanings to that society. So if this society believes in circles as uniformity or community, then circles will be used, because just by the people standing in those shapes in that formation, it's going to convey a message to the audience. We are unified. This is communal. This is oneness. Another example of that might be if some communities use triangles to show balance. So using the formation of triangles, dancers standing in a way that the audience can see the shape of triangles, helps to convey to that audience, that society, remind them that this society is balance, and the use of balance in that society. These events, these dances and experiences are all financed by the court in which they happen. The first court that we're going to look at via a video analysis is the Ashanti Court in Ghana. In the Ashanti Court, there's a role called the Ashanti Henny. The Ashanti Henny is the king of kings. The Ashanti Henny is the chief of chiefs. Good dancing is a qualification of being the Ashanti Henny. Now, in more modern times and more contemporary times, you can go into this position and still need to train as a dancer. But my understanding is that initially you had to understand the dancing before you could even try to obtain this position. The Ashanti Henny is the representation of the community and of the society. And because of that, their dance movement needs to be that. So within the Ashanti Henny's movement, you see this aesthetic of cool. This idea of cool is a physical thing, in that when you see the chiefs, oftentimes their court is carrying court members are carrying umbrellas to keep the head of the chief cool. So physically cool, but mentally cool also, and emotionally cool also. The Ashanti Henny and the chiefs are required to be cool and be smooth as they navigate the complexities and the stresses of what it would take to get through troubling situations in society, conflict in society. The aesthetic of cool is also this metaphysical idea and concept, in that the Ashanti Hene and the chiefs are chosen because they need to be the representation of all of the people in their society. So their movement, their dancing, their personality needs to cross the spectrum of what would be considered young and old. So their movement needs to be precise. It needs to be agile. It needs to be smooth. It needs to be fiery. It also needs to cover the spectrum of gender, right? So it needs to be graceful and soft and aggressive and percussive. So it needs to cover the full spectrum, and knowing how to use that spectrum of efforts. So we're talking about efforts now, right? We're talking about both efforts, um, and we're talking the quality of the movement, and we're talking about tempo, and right. So this role needs to be an embodiment of everything and everyone. All of the chiefs have an ensemble of dancers and musicians, and when there are larger events, the lesser chiefs dance first. Each chief and all of the courtier and their courtesans, their courtiers, are responsible for passing the knowledge on to the next generation. So if I am a musician, I train in the music that I am expected to play, but I also train someone else so that the traditions continue. This is a short, very, very short timeline of the Ashanti Court, the Ashanti people. And it only goes, if you notice, it starts at the 1700s when they win their independence. And this is in mythology. This is the story, is that it is during this time that the first stool, a golden stool, appears in the sky, and it appears to Ose Tutu, and he becomes the first Ashanti Hene. When you see the chiefs, they are generally seated on a stool. That stool is a throne, or you can use other references. It is carved by hand, and within the carvings are symbols that are relative in to the society. It is in 1817 that Britain gets its first glimpse of Ghana, and if you were to read these accounts, these historic accounts, some of the things that are mentioned was the use of gold, the gold jewelry, how bright it was, how much of it was, and because of that, Ghana is also referred to as the Gold Coast. So when you're doing research, you might see the Gold Coast in reference. That is to Ghana. It's not until 1957 that Ghana then gets its independence from colonization. So if you can see in that timeline, Ghana goes through different people being in charge and life being different amongst that time. Your first video analysis for this module, it's TAT number 9. It's a video analysis because you're analyzing the video. It is a written submission that documents, describes, and teaches. It is a 1-paragraph submission, and this paragraph is a base paragraph with connections. So it's going to be a larger size paragraph. It's going to have a minimum of 7 sentences. 2 of those sentences are connections, meaning you're connecting what you saw to the culture, directly to the culture, the history of what's going on. Your connection sentences can answer things like, what is Ashanti Hene? Why is it important for the Ashanti Hene to dance? What does the dancing symbolize? What is seen under the movement? So thinking back to that Deidre Scalar 5 premises that we read, You can enjoy the dance, but you learn a little more about the dance. You get a deeper understanding of the dance and more enjoyment if you understand the culture. Your base paragraph is offering information about the culture. This paragraph also includes a minimum of 5 base sentences. Each sentence describes a dance movement. In that sentence, there's representation of each element. Please pay attention to the timelines associated with your assignments. If you have questions about this assignment, please email me via the Canvas platform prior to. Now, when I say prior, I'm saying at least a day or so prior to the assignment due date so that your concern, I can get your concern, respond back, and that you have time to make the adjustments. You can also at any time, if you're having trouble, let's have a Zoom meeting and discuss these things. And have a great day. That's it for this lecture.